Divided U.S. corrupt system, candidates of the cabal. The notion that the United States, like many other countries, is being held hostage by a global cabal of elites who control its leaders has become a prevalent belief among certain groups. This perspective suggests that both major political parties, Republicans and Democrats, are essentially indistinguishable in their quest for power and serve the interests of a select group rather than the American people. Historical events and recent developments provide context to these views, fueling concerns about the integrity of the U.S. political system. A divided America, echoes of a deep-rooted conflict. The United States has always been a nation divided along various lines: political, racial, and socioeconomic. These divisions have only deepened over time, particularly in the past few decades. The ideological gap between Republicans and Democrats has widened, leading to an increasingly polarized electorate. However, critics argue that despite the apparent differences between the two parties, their actions reveal a common goal: the pursuit of power at the expense of the public good. The 2016 and 2020 presidential elections are prime examples of this division. Both campaigns were marred by accusations of corruption, foreign interference, and the manipulation of the electoral process. The narrative that both parties are controlled by a global cabal gained traction as voters grew disillusioned with the political establishment. The rise of populist movements, both on the left and right, reflects a growing frustration with a system perceived to be rigged in favor of the elite. Corrupt system. The manipulation of power. The idea of a corrupt political system in the U.S. is not new. Throughout American history, there have been numerous instances where political leaders have exploited their positions for personal gain. The Gilded Age of the late 19th century, for instance, was characterized by widespread corruption and cronyism. Political machines, like Tammany Hall in New York, wielded immense power, controlling elections and government appointments to benefit a select few. In modern times, the influence of money in politics has become a major concern. The Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission decision in 2010, which allowed for unlimited corporate spending in elections, is often cited as evidence of a corrupt system. This ruling has led to an influx of dark money in politics, where wealthy donors and special interest groups can wield significant influence over candidates and policies. The result is a political landscape where elected officials are often beholden to their donors rather than their constituents. Moreover, the revolving door between government and the private sector further exacerbates concerns about corruption. Politicians and government officials frequently move between public office and lucrative positions in the private sector, raising questions about conflicts of interest and the integrity of the decision-making process. Candidates of the cabal, puppets of the elite? The idea that political candidates are merely puppets of a global cabal is a central theme in the critique of the U.S. political system. This perspective holds that no matter who is elected, the real power lies with an unseen elite that pulls the strings behind the scenes. Historical events, such as the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, have fueled conspiracy theories about the existence of a shadow government. The assassination of JFK in 1963 remains one of the most controversial events in American history. The Warren Commission, which investigated the assassination, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. However, many Americans believe that the true culprits were never brought to justice and that the assassination was orchestrated by powerful interests threatened by Kennedy's policies. This belief has been reinforced by the lack of transparency surrounding the case and the suppression of certain documents. The treatment of Donald Trump during his presidency also contributes to this narrative. Trump, who campaigned as an outsider intent on draining the swamp, faced unprecedented opposition from within the government. His administration was plagued by investigations, leaks, and what some perceive as attempts by the intelligence community to undermine his presidency. These events have led some to argue that the same forces that allegedly conspired against JFK were at work against Trump, reinforcing the notion of a deep state or cabal controlling the government. Banana Republic. The erosion of democracy. The comparison of the U.S. to a banana republic suggests that the country is devolving into a state where democracy is merely a facade and power is concentrated in the hands of a few. The U.S. has long positioned itself as a beacon of democracy, often criticizing other nations like Russia and China for their authoritarian practices. However, critics argue that the U.S. government engages in similar tactics, both at home and abroad. The use of government agencies like the CIA and FBI to influence domestic politics has been a recurring theme in American history. The COINTELPRO program of the 1960s and 70s, for example, saw the FBI engage in illegal surveillance and harassment of political activists, including civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. More recently, accusations that these agencies have been used to target political opponents, as in the case of Trump, have led to concerns about the politicization of law enforcement and the erosion of democratic norms. Internationally, the U.S. has a long history of interfering in the elections of other countries. The CIA's involvement in the overthrow of democratically elected leaders in Iran, 1953, and Chile, 1973, are well-documented examples. These actions have often been justified in the name of protecting U.S. interests, but they have also contributed to the perception that the U.S. is a hypocritical actor on the global stage. Conclusion: a system in crisis. The belief that the United States is controlled by a global cabal is a reflection of a deeper crisis of confidence in the country's political system. As divisions grow and corruption appears more entrenched, many Americans are losing faith in the idea that their government truly represents them. The historical and contemporary examples of political manipulation, both at home and abroad, fuel this skepticism. The challenge for the United States is to address these concerns and restore trust in its democratic institutions. Without meaningful reforms, the perception of a corrupt system controlled by an elite few will continue to grow, further dividing the nation and undermining the principles upon which it was founded. Whether or not the idea of a global cabal is accurate, the underlying issues of corruption, manipulation, and division are real and must be confronted if the U.S. is to remain a functioning democracy.